Hi, welcome to another episode of Managing Well. I'm Tonya Ladipo, and today I wanted to talk about what we do when we as people managers are going through it. You know, a lot on our podcast, we talk about how to be a great people manager, how to support your team, how to support individuals on your team, but there are some times where we need support ourselves. And, you know, if I think about the past 6 weeks that I have had, life has really been throwing me in it. And you know, it's funny. I like to surf. And I took a couple of days off and I went surfing and I took a lesson. And I remember it was right before hurricanes were coming. And they said, we're going to get you in on this day because after it's going to be too rough. And so I was like, okay, great. Take my lesson. I go out and I'm putting on my wetsuit and I'm looking at the shoreline and the ocean. And I said to the guys, like, I think those waves are too big for me. Like, I don't think I can do it. And he's like, no, there's some smaller ones. So we waded out. And I'm like, how big are those waves? Because I'm like, those are big waves. I'm still a novice. And those were big waves. And the ocean just kept knocking me and literally throwing me around. At one point, I'm on the ocean floor doing a somersault, not by choice, but by the ocean's design and desire. Scraped my knee up. It's still banged up. And I was literally underwater thinking, this is how the past 6 weeks have been. Everything that seemed like it could go wrong has gone wrong. Everything that could be challenging has been challenging. Health, death, like every pain point that could happen has been the past 6 weeks for me. And so standing in the ocean, getting knocked down, trying to stand in the ocean, I realized I got up every time. And at one point, the instructor even said, after I hurt my knee, I scraped it up. He's like, do you want to stop? And I said, no, because if I take a break, I'm not gonna finish. We only had 30 minutes left and I wanted to keep doing it. But it was just such a timely lesson and metaphor of when things are hard and you're in a position of leadership. Like, you can't take breaks, but you get up, you keep going, you do what you have to do. And it hurts. My body was sore for 2 days. And so I just wanted to kind of talk here about us being human, us having hard times in life, and us still having to lead through that. And so, you know, I got up on the surfboard a few times. It wasn't pretty. It was not graceful, but I got up. And like, that's what it is. Like, you get through it. You might not be at your best. But you keep going, right? You keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so I was thinking like, okay, how am I going to get through this period of time? And there are a couple of things. One, I have doubled down on basic self-care, like getting enough sleep, drinking water, moving my body. So like in really basic ways, doubling down on that. And then the other thing, and doubling down on that, because I started to take care of myself the way I take care of my children, right? So when they were younger and cranky, it's time to go to bed. And so recognizing that for myself, like, I'm cranky, it's time for me to rest. I'm thirsty, it's time for me to drink water. I'm hungry, it's time for me to eat and not ignore it because I've got to check this email. But just really tending to my basic needs. And then emotionally taking breaks when I can. So going surfing was actually a break, even though it beat me up. And I think I want to talk a little bit about emotional regulation that I'm doing and hopefully you're doing, and why taking breaks is so important and very much connected to emotional regulation. So when we're in a storm, when we're in the ocean and it's swirling us about, and when I say take a break, go for a walk, take the day off, the point is to recenter yourself, right? So the swirl is still happening. Whatever is going on in your personal life or work life is still happening. But to pause for a moment and take deep breaths helps regulate and calm your nervous system so that you're not heightened, but that you're calmer, that you're physically calmer. Your brain is getting more oxygen. It's able to think more clearly rather than be reactive. And so again, think back to whether you're a parent or you've certainly seen it in the grocery store with other parents. Like when kids are having tantrums, like they need help collecting themselves, regulating themselves. And so as adults, we have our own tantrums, whether they're outward or inward. And just taking a break is a moment of like, it's okay. It's just like patting and rubbing your own back of taking some breaths of like, it's going to be okay. It doesn't feel like it, but it's going to be okay. And so you might listen to music that calms you. You might take a walk and look at nature, even if you are in the middle of the city and it's a blade of grass you're looking at or a leaf that's falling from a tree, just to kind of bring you to the present and remind yourself that you're in this moment and this too shall pass, because that's how it happens, right? I was talking to a friend recently and they said, "What do you need? How can I support you?" And I said, "Oh, just remind me everything will be okay." And I said, I'm old enough. I know it will be okay because that I've lived life long enough to know it's okay. It'll work itself out, but that doesn't negate like how it feels in the moment. And so I think that's the final piece I'd share is as a manager, get your own support. You likely have your own manager, right? And so go to your own manager and ask for what you need, whether it is a couple of days off, whether it is to shift some of your load, but that you get to also advocate for yourself, to tend to yourself so that you can be a better people manager as well. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I would love to hear from you how you deal with leading and managing other people when you are going through your own stuff as well. Thank you for listening to Managing Well. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to learn more about today's episode, go to theladipogroup.com/podcast for a worksheet on today's episode. A special thanks to my podcast team and the Ladipo Group who supports this show. Managing Well is produced and edited by Black Faves Brand Studio. I'm your host, Tonya Ladipo. If you have any questions or topics you want to discuss, email me at managingwellpodcast@theladipogroup.com.